Okay, so welcome to this video today. So basically in this video, what I want us to just cover is one of the things that you'll see in your exam scope, which is the figures of speech, right? So when we talk about a figure of speech, basically it's an expression and it has the purpose of making the meaning clearer or more forceful or more beautiful, right? So basically what this means is that it tries to add more vividness or vigor or beauty to whatever is being said. It's trying to make whatever you're saying more clearer, right? It's clarifying. It's giving you more of a feeling what this person's trying to convey to you, being that it's being more forceful or also being just more beautiful, expressing beauty of that particular thing. So basically, you can even think of figures of speech as actually like ornaments, and you know what an ornament is? It's something that you decorate in a house or something like that, right? And so it's just almost like a decoration of speech. You're making that speech more vivid, more vigor, giving it more vigor and beauty as well, right? And so one thing that you should be careful about, especially when you use or when you see figure of speech, it should be used more naturally and it has to be appropriate to that particular instance, and it should increase the effectiveness of what is being said. So here are the basic um, figures of speech that you should know. So these are the ones that we have here. So the first one is definitely what we call a simile. Now, again, figures of speech you do find quite a lot in poems by poets and so on, right? And also in written literature. So the first one is a simile, and a simile is the easiest one to kind of like remember is that it's just a direct comparison to unlike things, and we almost always use the words like or as. So whenever you see like or as, and these are two things which are unlike each other, right? They're not the same. Then you could imagine that this should be a simile, right? So, for instance, my daughter dances like an angel, right? And like is one of those words that gives us a good idea that it should be a simile, and they are comparing the daughter to the angel, right? And the other two as well. Okay. And then we also have what we call a metaphor, right? A metaphor. So a metaphor, it's an implied comparison. Now, you see what they're saying. It's an implied comparison made between two unlike things that actually have something in common, right? So it's an implied comparison. However, these are two unlike things, but that have something in common. Unlike when we look at a simile, a daughter and an angel. An angel is kind of like a spiritual, religious being, whereas a daughter is someone who's living on the earth and so on. So there's always you won't really find that much commonality between the two. However, when we look at a metaphor, then it's an implied comparison, and these are two unlike things. However, they do have something in common. And amongst the most common metaphors are those that refer to our senses touch, taste, sight, hearing, and smell, right? So, an old flame, right? Or boiling mad, right? Boiling mad. Um, I'm so hot for her. She's so cold. You see the Rolling Stones. Hunka Hunka Burn Love by Elvis Presley. You see, so these are metaphors. These are metaphors of like boiling water, right? Okay. Now, again, then we also have what we call a symbol, and a symbol basically is a person, place, or thing that comes to represent an abstract idea. Now, an abstract idea is something that we can't really picture in our heads, right? So it's just a symbol. A symbol is a person or place or thing that represents an abstract idea or concept. It is anything that stands for something beyond itself, right? So it's anything that stands for something that is beyond itself. So a symbol is a, re, a, re, a repeatable concrete image, right? An object which captures a second level of the meaning from a particular experience. So scales of justice. You understand what that means? Scales, you know what scales are. They measure weights on the left and the right. Or if the one's heavier than the other one, then it will go down, one will go down, and one will be pulled up. It's a scale, right? And that's the idea. But what is the deeper meaning here when they say the scales of justice? They mean basically they're talking about law, and they're talking about the fact that law has its fairness, has fairness. It tries to achieve fairness within law, and that's what the symbolism means, right? The scales of justice, or Lady Liberty, meaning freedom, the doves of freedom, right? That's just the symbolism of freedom again. So these are just also the symbols that when they talk about a symbol, that's what they represent, right? It's something that is concrete, it's a physical object that you can actually picture in your head. However, it has a bigger meaning, just as I said, scales of justice, meaning they want to balance fairness. They want to have fairness and balance the laws between people, right? And then we also have what we call the personification, right? And this is a figure of speech in which an inanimate object, meaning just a non-living object or abstraction, is in, endowed with human qualities, right? It's given human qualities, right? So basically, in this case, then what they talk about basically is that, for instance, the ocean roars. Oh, an ocean can't roar per se. It's actually just wind, right? It's just wind pushing the waters, but the ocean roared. The only thing that roars is like a lion, right? So they have actually given this inanimate object, which is the ocean, the characteristic of actually roaring, right? And so then you also have the tea kettle screamed out in the kitchen. It doesn't actually scream, it just makes a noise, once it's boiled and stuff. But they say it screamed out, and someone that screams is a human being, right? But a teacup, a tea kettle is actually an inanimate object, right? Okay, and then we have the hyperbole, um, sorry, a figure of speech in which exaggeration is used for emphasis or effect, right? Or yeah. So for emphasis or effect, basically it's almost an exaggeration. So for instance, maybe you're carrying two books. Someone says these books weigh a ton. Like really, they can't weigh a ton, right? It's an exaggeration. And then we also have what we call an understatement. And an understatement is a figure of speech in which a writer or a speaker deliberately makes a situation seem less important, right? So, understatement is to make something seem not as important as it really is, right? And so, in this case, an example would be, I have to have this operation. It isn't very serious, right? I have this tiny little tumor on the brain. You see, that's definitely an understatement. Having a tumor in your brain is a very big, a serious thing, but also at the same time, just having an operation in any case is quite serious. And then we have an onomatopoeia, right? Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. It's a bit of a difficult word. So this is the formation or use of words that imitate the sounds, right? With the objects or actions to which they refer. So for instance, getting married. I'm getting married in the morning, and then you say ding dong, the bells are gonna chime, right? Basically, ding dong is this figure of speech where it's basically just giving us the idea that it's the wedding bells, right? It's wedding bells. And one of these days, Alice Pow, right in the kisser, right? Pow meaning punch, right? And so you could imagine what this means, right? It's just giving, it just imitates the sounds associated with the objects or actions that has been done. And then we have alliteration, and this is just the repetition of an initial consonant sound. And so a consonant, remember a consonant, what a consonant is. So an alliteration, like for instance, the example is alliteration lightly links. You see, alliteration lightly links. And what was the consonant here? It was the L, right? So it was the alliteration lightly links, you see, okay? And so, yeah, that's the example for that one. And there are other two you can read out on your own. And then you have the oxymoron. And so the oxymoron is a figure of speech in which an or a contradiction terms appear side by side. So when there are two terms that contradict each other, then there's an oxymoron, right? So the phrase domestic cat is an oxymoron, right? Um, Original copy. Like, have you ever heard someone saying, okay, act naturally, right? Or original copy. How can an original thing be a copy at the same time? You see, original copy, that's an oxymoron where there's two contradictory terms that are side by side. Alone together, turn up missing, small crowd, right? But it's a crowd, and a crowd is usually big, but then it's small. Oxymoron. Okay, so those are all the figure of speech that we have. So I hope you understand how we use figure of speech and how to identify them and what they are. But other than that, I really thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.